I don't know about any of you, but being trapped inside my house for the last couple of weeks has made me reevaluate a couple of things about my existence that I wouldn't have ever reconsidered otherwise. Having finally received something I would have normally considered as a blessing, given that isolating myself from the rest of the planet is intrinsic to my antisocial nature, I figured it would have been the best time to finally play the games I would not normally have time for. Of course, that would mean neglecting online class, but shit, it's not like they're gonna realize that very convincing image of me on their monitor is actually an elaborate decoy, so I think I'm in the clear. And you know what? I played those video games so much that my verbal capacity became limited to the two most important words that were essential for my playthrough of Doom Eternal.
Rip and fucking tear!
After beating the campaign on Nightmare and having to relearn the other unimportant 20 letters of the alphabet, I laid back to have a good look at my achievements, and that's when I realized something. I've played Doom Eternal for 32 hours, and it felt like nothing. That's when a deep sensation of emptiness kicked in. It felt like absolutely no time had passed at all. To a normal person, this would probably mean that you were having fun, but to me, this was worrying. You see, I'm currently in the middle of studying business at college, and I often come around to think about the monetary value of things a lot. You know, stuff like how to underpay my employees, explaining why the hell do EA games cost so much money when they offer so little when it's clear that even without microtransactions and better content, they could still run an efficient and more legal business model, or how much can I inflate the price of this stick to sell it and still make a profit? I know I'm getting a bit sidetracked, but the point I want to make here is that when it comes to thinking about the monetary value of stuff, I want shit to be worth the money I'm paying for it. I want the shit I get be worth the resources I pour into obtaining it. I want it to be a worthwhile investment. So when I look at things like my Doom Eternal playtime and the actual feeling of satisfaction I get, I start to panic a bit. I paid full price for this game because Lord knows Mick Gordon and the people at id Software deserve it. And I did enjoy every single second of this game, but with a playtime of 32 hours, did I really get to enjoy everything? Again, I know this sounds ridiculous for someone who isn't an analytical shut-in bitch, but for context, this is one of the games I've actually played the least on my account. The two games I currently have the most hours in are Payday 2 and Team Fortress 2, clocking it at 936 and 984 hours respectively. Now, a funny thing that's happened with these two games is that despite having placed an incredible amount of time and effort into solidifying my status on them, I've come to fucking loathe them. Okay, maybe not loathe, but I seriously hold a grudge against these games for the things they've done in my life. Not to mention the massive amount of time they've drained from my soul that I could have spent composing the anthem of a generation or making several scientific breakthroughs with. The only reason that I keep playing these two is because A, I love my friends just enough to keep pocketing them with a crit streak after a million matches despite the fact that I crave death from just playing for a few minutes, and B, because I want to give Payday 2 a proper kick in the nutsack before I stop playing for good. And because I still have to wait for the content to stop fucking dropping. Seeing the amount of hours I'd spent on these two games, my utter disdain for them, and taking into account that I've spent some money on both, albeit a relatively small amount, I figured I'd try an experiment. A friend of mine has this Facebook page that notifies you whenever a game is about to go free to keep forever on Steam. So in order to see if the time and money I invest in these products actually affects my enjoyment of a game outside of the gameplay, I downloaded a couple of these free games to give them a spin. The following excuse of an investigation was the result. Okay then, thank you for the introduction. Now let's create a profile here. There we go, an appropriate name. Select unit. Unit.
Who's a good girl? Who's a good girl?
Wait, who the fuck are you? I chose a doggy. What do these two have to do with anything? Actually, I think I don't want to know. And just as fast as these girls consider prostitution as their next viable course of action, they 180 their plan in favor of monster hunting. Well, that was certainly an experience. Now it's time to actually learn how to play. Let's see here. Welcome to 100% Orange Juice. We will explain a few basics. If you wish, you can just skip over them. This is a 4-player board game where the usual goal is to reach a normal level 6 to win. You roll dice to move on a game board. Different color panels have different effects. This is a home panel. You always start player has their own land on one to level up or win. The objective is to gather dice, stars, choose where charity battles. By the way, oh, and you gotta listen to this one. This is the most important one. Please enjoy the game. And beware of Murray Popo. Okay, so from what I gather, this shit is basically a party game where you race around a couple of blocks in order to get stars. You play for what feels like hours, you fight in hopes of getting those sweet ass stars, and then you lose because some cunt gets a higher roll, and that's the game. That doggy better receive her pudding as a reward, or goddammit, I'll unleash Marie Popo onto the world! I still have no idea what this game has to do with oranges, liquid pulp running across a patch of grass hoping not to get flattened, or murdering your spouse though, so I think the title and correlation to the themes presented was a bit mismanaged. Overall, I'd say that this did not need to be a video game. It plays exactly like a standard board game that has overly complicated instructions, it includes a die, player pieces, and fucking cards. Playing it must have raised my blood pressure to above 180, and it all boils down to dumb luck, so I can't really say that there's any strategy involved. I hate it. But on the other hand, the graphics and characters are fucking adorable, so 10 out of 10, Game of the Year. Arcade Moonlander is a game that intends to capture the spirit of that one classic Atari game, Lunar Landing from 1977. The biggest mistakes this game makes from the get-go is first, not being asteroids, and second, assuming that it's still 1977 for you to be bored enough to play it. Seriously, if you want a better game about landing spaceships, then my man UFO Joe has you covered, because in addition to landing your ship, you also have the new and improved ability to abduct creatures from 3 different environments to anally probe. What was I talking about again? Can't have been that important. Let's instead move on to... Okay, look, I know you indie game developers like naming your shit something either extremely simple or overly complicated, but for the love of God, try to make it stand out from the rest. I actually nearly forgot about this game and had to record this bit halfway into editing because of how similar it sounds to the millennia of other indie titles out there. Clam Density of Elsa from Frozen is an RPG Maker game that sees you wake up knee-deep in vomit from a drunken stupor in a dark house. This Elsie creature the title alludes to has disappeared and left you a note in your kitchen table, you know, like all good runaway wives do, and you decide that it's in your best interest to find her and ensure that she is safe. Who knows, maybe that alimony payment would have gone through the roof and put a hole in your bar tab if you didn't keep her safe, so I'm guessing that putting up with the wife isn't so bad after all. I think this is meant to be a horror game based on the prolific use of ketchup, corn syrup, ambiguous story, and wooden mansions with ridiculously large gardens, but I don't think it really works when the first enemy you face is a pretty inoffensive looking skeleton. All jokes aside, I actually missed what I assume was meant to be the first jump scare because it showed up in the screen for less than 2 seconds while I was distracted admiring the scenery.
I tell you what, man, them pipelines are a fine work of engineering beauty. Only thing keeping them from being a straight-up masterpiece is the fact that they lack Strickland propane and propane accessories.
Come here, I'm gonna kick your ass!
If I had to give the most generic Game of the Bunch award to any one of these games, it'd be this one. I mean, that's certainly the first impression the game left on me, considering that I played it for less than 4 minutes in total and still somehow managed to unlock 9 achievements, as if the developers didn't know what hard challenges to present you with besides opening the options menu. It's also a game that I could probably consider fun with friends in an arcade, not as a full release on Steam. The retro interface and aesthetics are kinda neat, but it becomes confusing when you have to tell miniature green triangle number 342 apart from the rest when the stage is morphing itself out of existence due to gravity alterations. Gravity of the situation, haha, get it? Funny pun man puns again, haha, my brain is dying here. Alright, Nefis begins.
Nefisi.
Well, fuck me for trying then. You play as the titular Nefertiti who's in a forest all alone collecting red mushrooms and animal skulls, all the while a lady narrates in past tense, as if it had already happened. This immediately answers the questions of who are the mushrooms for and why does the narrator sound like she's recovering from a crippling ketamine addiction, but the remaining question I'd like an answer for is what business does a child helping grandma with rehab have to do with animal remains? If the unnerving atmosphere of this forest and the suspiciously similar naming the Nefisi games have to the Dark Knight franchise are anything to go by, I'd say that a little gal pal here is about to go down a path of pure chaos in the future. I wonder if it's the skulls that'll play a part in that, or if Grandma's gonna assume the role of the Joker now that she's up on the shrooms. The effects of it must already be kicking in if the huge ass fox in the cave that leads into the gates of hell are of any indication. Simple Story Alex is another short story that only exists because of the influence of substance abuse at the hands of a drunk asshat who can barely speak English. I swear, all of you RPG Maker devs have a thing for alcohol. It's time to get help and start trying new things. Like hamster torching, or cactus hugging, or jacking off with a wooden prosthetic hand. You know, something more healthy and productive. This guy in particular wants to go to work, but ends up teleporting himself into a castle and has to do asinine tasks for generic town NPCs. You know, the classical excuse for not going to work. His life eventually gets ruined by his wife, who tidies up the house and tells him to fuck off. Oh, now that's beautiful. Conclusion: it sure is a game, you bet your ass it's simple, it indeed has a story, and you sure as hell are an Alex. Also, every time you use the menus, it sounds like you're entering Lightspeed. Super Foosball. I never thought I'd say those two words together out loud. This is Foosball with orange and blue art mannequins for players. Not much that I can say about this one, except that I can now make all the players plank and make it look convincing. And just like in real life, I suck at it. What price did this game originally have again? Ah, shit, this is already free. Criticism can apply here, or otherwise I'm gonna get burned at the stake because internet mobs can't recognize that criticism comes out of a desire to improve rather than mean spirit. Fuck! The plan is failing. Let's pretend that I have integrity by moving on to the next game, which is... The Search. No, not that Surge. This Search. Kinda reminds me of a certain infamous Payday 2 map. The Search is a puzzle game where you have to use ticket booths and paintings to get through rooms. The concept is simple, but the execution is far better than what it sounds like. Exploration is heavily rewarded, and the majority of the time, a certain logic is required to solve even the most basic of puzzles. It's good, but there's something about these environments that throws me off. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something that's telling me to run, as if I was in a dangerous spot. As if something was activating my fight or flight instincts, and I'm not really sure what it is. Oh, right, the maps remind me a lot of Counter-Strike, and that gives me severe PTSD. I don't blame that on the game though, since it's more or less a result of my inability to pick fun and relaxing games to play with my friends, so I give it a pass. Let's put up the game here. Oh, it's VR only. Shit. Well, I guess the only sensible thing left to do is to write a negative review about this game because they didn't inform me about the technical requirements that I needed to run it that were clearly not available to me and that I didn't bother to look up either like the professional game reviewer that I am. Yeah, that seems like a logical and completely rational decision to make. When I downloaded this game, I was under the impression that it would be some sort of golfing simulator, making an educated guess basing myself on the graphics and name alone, but it turned out to be a completely different thing. Basically, what you do in this game is race across several different obstacle courses to get to a finish line. It's simple, it's fun, and the song that plays while you make a break for the finish line is one of the greatest, most uplifting songs I've ever heard from a video game. I seriously feel like I'm on a journey to discover the secret of the universe and free myself from eternal torment when it plays, and I can't get enough. So in essence, this game is about how a tiny polygonal sphere discovers that it doesn't need to go in holes even if society expects it to, and it can run into and completely wreck a black stick as quickly as possible if it truly wants to. It isn't an easy journey, as there are several obstacles on the way that could be potentially dangerous or life-threatening, but with your help, the ball can completely overcome its problems and succeed, and I think that we can all agree that is a good thing. Also, this game has multiplayer, so feel free to customize your balls as much as you like so you can show them off to your friends and have them be very supportive and accepting of your personal choices. Glad you could join the mutual aid group today. We all enjoy your company and hope this session's therapy was of use. You know, I didn't actually get this game. I know that the fate of several universes hangs in the balance of me giving my opinion about this very specific piece of media, but I regret to inform you that complications arose. Which ones exactly? Yeah, well, first of all, I didn't meet the deadline. Second, this shit had to make me sign up to Humble Bundle and subscribing to their newsletter in order to get my hands on it. It's basically a contract to make me buy stock, and I don't like how this one looks, much less that I need to create an account for it, so I'm not falling for it. I can still tell you with 100% certainty that I can divinate what the game is about solely by looking at the cover. Yeah, let's just say that it's about an alternate timeline where a brain-dead salaryman helps a pair of anorexic hip-hop and heavy metal fans find true love, and thus ends the rivalry between the two music genres to give birth to Rage Against the Machine while starting a revolution to kill the rich and just move on. Actually, no. This game deserves a video of its own. Or at least, it would, if OBS didn't have a built-in bullshit detector that activates every time I get past a loading screen and causes it to subsequently face-fuck itself. Having reached the end of my studies here, charting the data, analyzing and interpreting every minuscule detail, taking into account all the factors, and using my trustworthy SWOT matrix, I hereby conclude that I have wasted my fucking time. Although I'm exaggerating a bit for comedic effect, this is not a joke. When it comes to investing in shit, you gotta factor in one very important detail that I didn't mention back at the beginning of the video, and that's opportunity cost. What do I lose if I don't do this or choose this option over the other? In my case, it was time. Time I could have spent with my friends online, time I could have used to study for administrative accounting, and time I'll never get back. But you don't want me to tell you about opportunity costs now, do you? You just want me to do your work for you and tell you which game has the big suck. Fine, I can do that. Conclusion A. My hamster torching hobby has steadily increased by 3 hours each day in response to the very negative feelings brought on by RPG Maker games, and in turn made me a more relaxed individual. Conclusion B. I really don't know what the hell I'm doing with my life studying business. I hate numbers, I hate pressure, and hate that the results of this study clearly show that I must have made a mistake somewhere in my calculations. Probably has to do with all those pies I converted into cakes. They were lying to me when they told me that cake are round and pie are square. I should have known. Conclusion C. You should really familiarize yourself with the shit that you're buying, even if it's free. Is that a good enough lesson for this video? Yeah, it's a good enough lesson for this video.